Speaker of the House Paul Ryan. How do you justify this policy?
It's zero tolerance. I don't think you have to justify it. We have a crisis on the southern border. Look, the elites in the city, and this ties into Korea, ties into everything that took place this week. The elites, the permanent political class in the city, want to manage situations to to bad outcomes. And Donald Trump is not going to do that. He's just not going to kick the can down the road, whether that's China, whether it's tariffs, whether it's Korea, whether it's the southern border. We ran on a policy, very simply, to stop mass illegal immigration and limit legal immigration, get our sovereignty back, and to help our workers, okay? And so he went to a zero tolerance policy. Zero tolerance, it's a crime to come across illegally, and children get separated. I mean, I hate to say it, that's the law, and he's enforcing the law.
But Steve, take a look at this image. We have this image of a young child, 2 years old, facing the possibility of being separated from her parents. There were nearly 2,000
Look, Jonathan, you have the human traffickers. This is a huge business now coming up from Central America. You're just going to exacerbate the problem. The president has said, give me a border wall for security. Okay, give me border wall security. We won't have this problem. He has a zero tolerance situation. He's drawn a line in the sand, and I don't think he's going to back off from it. And by the way, I don't see the mainstream media, and I don't see the liberal left embracing the angel moms, those people that were permanently separated from their children because of illegal aliens that came over here and committed crimes and killed people. You're very selective about how you...
No. Steve, this is a U.S. policy. We are taking and separating these young children from their parents at the border. What about the morality of it?
The morality is the law. They're criminals when they come across, okay, illegally, and that's why they're getting separated. By the way, if they're calling asylum, they're still going to the detention centers, although the detention centers are now full. That's the Obama policy right from 2014.
So the children are criminals? The children that
they are not, but the law, because of the consent decree, means that children cannot stay with parents that are being charged with a crime. This is the law. Donald Trump is put in a terrible situation. Why is he put in a terrible situation? He's put in a terrible situation because the permanent political class in this city has not wanted to address this. Donald Trump has gone against his base more than any president to show a profile and courage to say, hey, look, we got to try to work this out. The base does not support these policies that really Donald Trump's trying to push through with Paul Ryan. Donald Trump is leading his base to that. He's shown more leadership than Bush. He's shown more leadership than Obama. And now that he's had a zero-tolerance policy, he's being ganged up on by the mainstream media.
So what about the religious leaders? What about you have the evangelicals, people like Franklin Graham calling it disgraceful, Cardinal Dolan called it unjust, unbiblical, un-American, and then you had the Pope.
By the way,
let's look what the Pope tweeted this. Children must be able to play, study, and grow in a peaceful environment. Woe to anyone who stifles their joyful impulse to hope.
The Pope, by the way, the Pope more than anybody else has driven the migrant crisis in Europe. That's why you have a new government in Italy. The Pope, yes. Yeah, by the way, the Catholic Church, I've gone after Cardinal Dolan. Cardinal Dolan's attacked me. The Catholic Church is one of the worst instigators of this open borders policy, right? The Catholic, and I'm a Catholic. I'm missing Mass today. I'm missing Mass today, or going later with my dad to be on your show. I'm a Catholic. No, the Catholic Church is one of the big instigators in the open borders, and the Pope has been driving the migrant issue in Europe. No, so no. It's by the way, that the Pope is not infallible when it comes to public policy, and that's a public policy issue.
So I want to show you another image. This came from General Michael Hayden, who is the former CIA director. He tweeted this, obviously a photo of Auschwitz and Birkenau, saying other governments have separated mothers and children. What's your response to the former director of the CIA?
Well, I don't believe in the deep state, but we'll get into this later. I think Hayden and all that crowd, Brennan, all of them. This shows you the over-the-top, anti-Trump, anybody but Trump, to demonize the President of the United States as a former military officer, completely unsatisfactory. And it's over-the-top comparison. This is a law, okay? The President is enforcing a zero-tolerance policy. We've got to get security on the southern border. He has not been given his wall, and I believe he's going to enforce this policy.
So why does the president pretend that this is a democratic law?
He's not pretending.
Well, what he said. What he's saying,
because for decades this law has been on the books. He's enforcing it. Who has gone out? And by the way,
Lindsey Graham's right.
No, Jonathan. This is what I don't get about you. Who has gone against his base to reach out to reach out with amnesty for DACA, to reach out on everything he's reached out to for Democrats over the last 6 to 9 months, with people, the hardliners in his base saying we can't do this, trying to lead us to some sort of compromise. All he's had is his hand smacked away the entire time. And now they're trying to demonize him. The whole purpose here is to demonize Donald Trump. And here is a guy that's shown more profile and courage than anybody in this issue, because you have the hardliners over here, right, the deplorables, and then you have the open borders crowd. Donald Trump is trying to reach a compromise, and all the Democrats have done.
You call them the deplorables.
Yeah, they're proud to be deplorable. So I've got T-shirts and ball caps. We're proud to be deplorables.
So the president, the House is going to be debating immigration this week. Paul Ryan has got a bill, or a couple bills under consideration. One of them would provide citizenship for the DACA recipients, a path to citizenship. Should that be supported by the president?
The president is trying to show leadership. The president is trying to show he's president for the entire country.
So you're not in favor of...
No, absolutely. I believe that this bill, and the concepts of these bills came up from people that thought we were going to have the tables run on us in November. This is the best deal that they could get. I'm adamantly opposed to these bills. I think any pathway to citizenship for DACA is unacceptable. And I believe when you look at the 4 pillars, the President Trump, I think, is very magnanimously laid out. I don't think the 4 pillars are included here. And principally,
so you oppose even having this path to citizenship? It would take years for the DACA recipients.
Absolutely.
Why is the president supporting it?
Well, the presidency's trying to show leadership. He's trying to show that I can bring my
mistake. Is it a political mistake?
I think that what we should do, and Lou Dobbs said it the other night. Lou Dobbs, told the president on national TV, if you go down this path, he believes we'll lose 50 seats in the House in November because you will not generate the base. I believe that this is...
Let's say that again. So you think they lose 50 seats in the House? They lose control of the House if they support this bill?
Lou Dobbs said, and I believe, if you support this bill, I think this is the way that deplorables don't come out. I think this is the way potentially lose 50 seats. Otherwise, I think we run the tables. This is why I'm saying, at the time that people in the White House thought about this, they thought there was going to be a blue wave, right? And this is the best they could do at the time. I strongly recommend that we just wait till 2019, right, to address this, because I think we're going to have a big November, and we'll play this from a position straight. And another thing, any bill that doesn't have E-Verify, we have to understand one thing, that this illegal immigration, the people that hurt the most are the Hispanic and black working class. It suppresses their wages. It destroys their health care. It destroys their school systems.
We have an unemployment rate in this country of 3.8% right now. Is this really about jobs?
Yes, it is, because wages are not increasing. We have to have the wages increase. And we don't want to continue to have the job.
What about the wall?
We don't want to continue to have the pressure of unskilled labor in this country that destroys the black and Hispanic working class. Once we get those wages up in agriculture and construction and oil field services, okay, then we can think maybe of a guest worker program. The thing to do now is to build the southern wall to basically...
Okay, so the wall, Will Hurd, Republican of Texas, said this is a 4th century solution. How hard do you think the president...
The 4th century solution, what worked in Israel and it worked in Hungary. When he says 4th century solutions, let's try I tell you, for Will Hurd, let's try a 4th century solution first. Let's try it first. And if that doesn't work...
Okay, so how hard should the president push for this? Should he say no funding, government shutdown, unless there's funding for the wall?
I believe when the appropriations bill comes up in October, and we're really in September now, before when it's going to, I think it's 30th September, and I've said this for a long time. That's why I think people shouldn't go home for the August recess.
You want to shut down over the wall?
I would definitely shut down the government over the wall. Absolutely. Listen, let's get it all on the table. Here's the thing. President Trump's got a great saying internally when he's talking to you, no games. No games. We got to stop the games in the city. Okay? This is all games. This is a game to demonize him. This is the security and sovereignty of the nation. Okay? And we're not helping those people that are bringing the kids up in that treacherous journey. You're helping the traffickers that are making the money. Okay? This is not right for them.
But it's the kids that you're separating from their children.
It's not right for them, and it's not right for the working class in this country that is foisted upon. Okay? And we've got to stop the games in the city. So yes, I would say in September, if they have not allocated money for the wall, let's shut down the government. And by the way, on November 6th, let the voters decide.
Okay, let's turn to the other big story here, the North Korean summit. So the president meets with Kim Jong-un, and he, in the process, has lavish praise for the person that's considered the most brutal dictator on earth. Let's take a listen.
It's an honor to be with you. Very great honor.
You trust him?
I do trust him, yeah. So he's a very smart guy. He's a great negotiator.
We got along very well. We had a good chemistry.
Do you have any issue with the optics here? And you also had the American flag there right next to the North Korean flag.
Once again, let's talk about political courage, okay? The elites and the permanent political class and the elites, look at the cards Donald Trump was dealt, okay? They have managed a process for unsuccessful outcomes for 20 or 30 years. This is all a subset of the geopolitical situation we have with China, okay? When Donald Trump came on board, okay, Korea and publicly disclosing has 20, 30, 40 nuclear weapons, has ballistic missile technology hit Tokyo, now the continental United States. China's built, 9 or 10 islands on Obama's watch and Bush watch.
Clinton, Bush, Obama, all failed.
Donald Trump is handed cards, okay, with the inexorable rise of China and Korea, its vassal state, as a nuclear threat to our allies in the Northwest Pacific and the United States. That's what he's dealt with. And what does everybody say about Trump? Oh, he's an isolationist. He's going to go it alone, everything like that. He's done more for engagement in this process.
So are you okay with that, though?
Here's what I'm okay
Saying
with.
he's honored.
Here's what I'm okay with. I'm okay with starting a process that is going to bring peace to the Korean Peninsula. I served as a naval officer in the 7th Fleet with the Korean Navy. I spent a lot of time in Korea.
Sure you have. Yeah.
Okay, the people there ultimately want to see an end to the Korea. We haven't ended the Korean War. President Trump is trying to be a peacemaker. Okay, so, in that process, by the way, in that process, he hasn't given up anything. All he was this week was vilified. Vilified. And so Donald Trump, by the way, this is what obsesses me. He has to have the vision. He has to negotiate the deal. He has to execute the deal. He has to come home and sell the deal. On Sunday morning TV this morning, where is the Republican establishment on Capitol Hill? Where are Corker and all those guys flooding these Sunday morning shows? Why am I here? Well, no, seriously. Why are they not flooding these Sunday morning shows talking about how the President of the United States is finally engaged with our allies in the Pacific to stop Chinese hegemony, okay, and to deal with this vassal state. And by the way, so anything, he didn't give up any sanctions. He got so many concessions from the North Koreans. And yes, there's some optics because he's trying to start a process that's going to end with a verifiable denuclearization of the peninsula. And it's going to take many, many years. And I don't know why he comes home and people do nothing but vilify him, and the Republican establishment doesn't have enough guts to come to these microphones this weekend and back him up as a guy that's trying to do something.
Okay, let's get to the IG report on the FBI's actions during the 2016 election. This had, of course, that very damning exchange, the text exchange between Peter Strzok, FBI agent, and former FBI lawyer Lisa Page. She says, Trump's not ever going to become president, right? And he responds, no, he's not. We'll stop it. Absolutely damning. But we also heard from FBI Director Chris Wray, who said this about the report.
This report did not find any evidence of political bias or improper considerations actually impacting the investigation under review.
He also said that the bias was limited in scope. Is he right?
Jonathan, let's talk about that. Let's talk about we'll stop it, okay? Mm-hmm. We have an issue. This is all tied to Korea and the Southern Wall. We have an elite in this country. That's not the most damning thing. And remember, Stork and these guys are not FBI agents. They're the equivalent, they're equivalent of 3- and 4-star generals. This is the leadership of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. But right, hang on. If you go and look at what they said about the American people, this is not animus. Their hatred of the American people and the Trump supporter and President Trump himself is shocking, and that has not been played up enough. They call the Trump voters lazy, poor, these middle-class, lazy, uneducated people can't get jobs, and pieces of excrement. Okay? You can't even say what they really said on Sunday morning television. They called Trump a piece of excrement. Their hatred of Trump, they weaponized the FBI against Donald Trump. This report is shocking on so many levels. And remember, an IG report, he says bias. Unless an inspector general, actually a guy tells him, yeah, I did it biasly, he's going to actually say that. The inspector general's report is just the beginning. It's a small slither. Remember, he didn't go to the intelligence agencies. He didn't go to state. He didn't go to the White House. And let's talk about this comment. We'll stop it. Okay. Devin Nunes comes out, the intelligence committee, all that was supposed to be sent to the intelligence committee. He did not see that quote until noon on Thursday when it was in the report. More importantly, on page 404 of this report, there's a footnote. That was deleted. That in the footnote, they only found that in May. That exchange, hang on, that exchange was found in May when they went back and took the thing and then went back. Stork, who's a 3-star general equivalent, in Page, deleted this. You know why? They knew it was a smoking gun. Here's very simple, very simple, very simple. The Attorney General of the United States, Jeff Sessions, good friend of mine, on Monday, he's got to put a special prosecutor on this, okay?
And if he doesn't?
And he ought to put he has to put a special prosecutor, and that special prosecutor ought to call for a grand jury, and panel a grand jury and go with it. By the way, if he does not, I think the President of the United States, under Title II, ought to order the Attorney General of the United States as Chief Law Enforcement Officer.
Or fire him if he doesn't?
As Chief Law Enforcement Officer of the United States, he ought to tell the Attorney General, you're going to put. And by the way, this is not a cover-up. This is to unearth a cover-up. This is to get sunshine and accountability in this process. This IG report is just the beginning. So you must have a full and thorough vetting of what went on.
On the other special counsel, Paul Manafort is now in a jail cell, and there's talk of Michael Cohen going state's witness, and Rudy Giuliani said something very interesting.
Cohen's different. Cohen's different because that's the Southern District.
That's Southern District.
Let's not mix them up.
But Rudy Giuliani said something very interesting. He said, when the whole thing is over, things might get cleaned up with some presidential pardons. Do you think the president's going to start pardoning Michael Flynn,
let me bifurcate these for a second.
Paul Manafort?
Let me bifurcate these for a second. Let's take the Southern District off to the side. Let's take them all. Okay. Here's what I believe has to happen. If you look at this IG report on crosswind hurricane, okay, Stork could not, he's a bureaucrat, could not wait to wrap up the report in July because he had to get on the Russian investigation. The other text you got to see with Page is where he says, this matters, in all capital letters, okay? He weaponized the FBI. There are subpoenas out from House Intel, from House Oversight, or from Senate Intel and Senate Oversight, and there's 2 more committees, the House Judiciary and the Senate Homeland Security. So there's 5 have had either subpoenas or requests of information from the Deputy Attorney General,
right,
and Deputy Attorney General, and the President of the United States.
But my question's on pardons.
It's going to get to this,
okay,
because you're not going to need pardons. The President of the United States tomorrow should direct Rosenstein, order him. Within 48 hours, he will comply with every subpoena of documents and witnesses to Capitol Hill, to all 5 committees.
Okay.
And if he does not do it in 48 hours, he's fired. Okay? And you're going to see, by the way, with the exposure of all this, as we go into it, we're going to get into the substrate and the foundation of the entire Mueller investigation. I've been an active participant in that. I've been there with Bob Mueller, and I'm not saying Bob Mueller is not a good guy. He's a combat Marine. Okay, I kind of admire him, but the underpinnings of his investigation, we have to go back and see how it started. Remember, all this stuff that's come out now about Cambridge and about Stephen Halper and all this, about maybe potential other foreign services, and it's not James Bond. These things run like the post office. There's a chain of title, of every email, of every expense account, everything. When you see what happened.
We have to take a quick break, but let me just ask you, you mentioned the Southern District very quickly. How worried should the president be about Michael Cohen?
I think that the Southern District, this whole thing of going into the Trump organization is another witch hunt. Okay, what does that have to do? What does that have to do? What does that have to do with Russian collusion? How did the Southern District of Manhattan even get involved here? Well, why are they going after the Trump organization? Why are they going after the president's personal attorneys? I thought this was about Russian collusion. Okay, if it's about Russian collusion,
as you pointed out, this is another investigation.
No, hang on. No, they're all inextricably. This is inextricably linked with Mueller. Let's go back and see what the foundation is. By the way,
you had just told me they were separated. I mean,
no. I want to bifurcate the Southern. The Southern District should have never started in the first place. To go after President Trump's business, okay, is just another example. And it's not the deep state. It's another. It's another example of the apparatus trying to go after Donald Trump.
All right, we have to take a quick break. Don't go away. We have much more coming up with Steve Bannon. A Republican senator this week said that the party has become a cult of Trump. I will put that to Mr. Bannon when we return.
This week with George Stephanopoulos, sponsored by CarMax.
I will always tell you the truth.
That was President Trump on the campaign trail in August 2016, telling the American people he will never lie to them. We are back here with Steve Bannon. Now, you famously kept the whiteboard of presidential promises to keep track of what he was keeping. That's a promise that he obviously broke. He has not always told the truth.
I don't know that. I mean, what I see is he has. I mean, this is another thing to demonize.
Wait, you say the president's never lied?
Not to my knowledge, no.
What about when he says that
Except when he called me Sloppy Steve. That's the only time.
What about when he says that the IG report exonerates him of collusion and?
What are you talking about? The IG report? You want to go back to that? You want to go back? You want to go back? No, you want to go back? You want to go back to the IG report that weaponizes the FBI against Donald Trump?
My point is, he says things that aren't true all the time.
I don't believe that.
Come on.
I think he speaks in a particular vernacular that connects to people in this country.
Let me play you what Mark Sanford said right after he lost Tuesday in his
Mark Sanford,
yeah.
The king of the never Trumpers, right?
Yeah. Well, let's take a look at what he said.
There is no seeming consequence to the president and lies. And if we accept that as a society, it is going to have incredibly harmful consequences in the way that we operate going forward.
Look, this is the problem you got. You have a Republican Party establishment, okay, that hates the fact that if you look at the total 2016 primaries of all the anti-establishment candidates, you had basically 84% voted for the anti-establishment, 16% voted for the establishment. Donald Trump is reforming the Republican Party, okay, along the policies, by the way, into a worker-based, more populist, more economic nationalist party. And by the way,
this is about lies and the truth and lies. So the president himself acknowledged that what he said about that Trump Tower meeting was not true. He said, basically it doesn't matter because I told the failing New York Times. I mean, are some lies okay?
I don't know if that's a lie or not, or
you think that's statement that he dictated?
I think it's a.
I mean, you yourself said the meeting was treasonous.
Except for Paul Manafort. I corrected that later on.
Right, but still,
this is not a meeting I would have taken. I think it was a dumb meeting. It was a stupid meeting. Okay. Well, but this is the thing, Jonathan. With as many, this is the thing. With as many issues, look at this week. Okay, the tariffs, the geostrategic engagement with China, where we're standing up for ourselves, the nuclear situation in North Korea. Okay, the crisis on the southern border.
But credibility hold on. Doesn't it?
The credibility, look at the institution of the FBI. You know what ought to happen right now? We ought to have another church commission like they had in the 70s. By the way, I'm a right-winger, and I'm saying we should have a church commission. We ought to have a bipartisan commission in the Senate.
Go after the intel community.
And the FBI. By the way, you have to, not to go after them, but right now you need the dry rot in our institutions. Why do people point at Donald Trump for some of the stuff he says? When we have the institutions in this city, are rotted at the core, and we know it. That IG report, which is just a sliver. Remember on the thing on the IG and about this thing right here? That was their government phones. We haven't even gotten to their personal communications. You want to talk about Michael Cohen? Michael Cohen, they took 16 of his BlackBerries, his computers, his kids' computers, okay? In the IG report, they just went to the government phones. You wait to the special prosecutor that will be designated. You wait till they get to the thing. You want to see the dry rot?
Let me nail down.
No, don't go after the splinter in somebody's eye when you're missing the plank, okay? This city's institutions are rotten to the core, and they must be investigated. And that's what Donald Trump came to say. He said, hey, I'm not kicking the can down the road anymore. I'm not going to pass on to the successors that come, regardless of political party, the situations we have in China, the situation we have in Korea, the crisis we have in the southern border. This is what leadership is all about. They say he's a disruptor. This is a guy that's saying, you want to talk about the Trump doctrine? The Trump doctrine is not on my watch. When my watch is over, I will help sort these things out, and we'll kick the can down so that the next president of the United States, regardless of the political party, will have to deal with a crisis in the southern border, and we will finally have our situation with China worked out.
Let me ask you about something you're quoted as saying in the book Fire and Fury by Michael Wolff. You said that the president's longtime attorney, Mark Kasowitz, had paid off many women who claimed to have affairs with the president. Here's the quote from the book. Kasowitz has gotten him out of all kinds of jams. Kasowitz on the campaign, what did we have, 100 women? Kasowitz took care of all of them. Were there
First, I haven't read the book, although the book was designated. Kellyanne Conway and Hope Hicks walked that book through, and everybody was interviewed was burned by then. But I want to talk about that. Kasowitz and Jason Miller and I did work a unit with all those incomings we had. I think 100 is way too much. I think it was like 20 or 25. All of those were refuted. Nothing came in the campaign. Remember, I think after the Billy Bush weekend, I think it was like, I forget, 20 or 25. Right?
Did you know about Stormy Daniels during the campaign?
No. Well, I think something came up about publicly about there was another porn star. There was.
But did you know about the payment, the $130,000?
Absolutely not.
Okay. So let's talk about the midterms. How engaged are you going to be? I've seen reports that you're setting up a war room. What's going on?
I've got a C4. We've already got a war room up for messaging, just on policies, right? To make sure Trump's policies are understood, make sure economic nationalism is understood, make sure.
So you're going to be running ads. You're going to be campaigning. You're going to be
running. I think we're going to be putting up ads. We're definitely going to be helping with the ground game, and just to get the issues out. If the issues, look, the Democrats got what they wanted. Okay, they've tried to nullify his election from day one with the opposition party media. Okay, so they did get one thing. They're going to have a do-over. This is Trump's first re-elect. It's going to be this November.
So Trump's on the ballot.
Absolutely, he's on the ballot. He's on the ballot nationwide.
Because there are some Republicans that are acting like he's not on the ballot.
Because the Republicans, by the way, the Republican establishment has spent all this money trying to get people to love the tax cut. And you saw what Charlie Cook went out there to the Republican House guys and said, hey guys, if you run on that, you're going to lose 40 seats. You put Trump on the ballot. It's very simple. November 6th, up or down vote. It's a national election, up or down vote in the impeachment of Donald Trump. I tell you why. You get to then look at Trump's economic policies, the growth of the economy. You get to look at what he's doing in national security. You get to look at what he's doing in immigration.
So is Bob Corker right then that the Republican Party has become the cult of Donald Trump?
It's not a cult of Donald Trump.
You're saying basically swear allegiance to Trump.
No, it's absolutely not a cult of Donald Trump. What Trump has done extraordinarily in this country is stepped in here and said, hey, guess what? Things have got to change, and I'm an agent of change. That's why he beat Hillary Clinton. He's just living up to what was on that whiteboard. He's checking boxes. And what he's saying, that's changing the Republican Party from being a donor, by the way, a donor-based party that were running dogs to the donors to now more of a worker-based and middle-class party. That is what Donald Trump has changed.
But a lot of Republicans say you have a very bad record in terms of who you've supported. And I want to play something that you said when you were over in France talking to the National Front over there. Take a listen.
Let them call you racist.
Laissez-vous appeler raciste.
Let them call you xenophobes.
Mais laissez-vous appeler xénophobes.
Let them call you nativist.
Laissez-vous les appeler nativistes.
Wear it as a badge of honor.
Steve, how can it be a badge of honor to be called a racist?
Okay, here's the thing. You walked into the same trap that BBC walked in, CNN walked into. Just don't take the clip. Look at the lead up to the clip. I was talking specifically about Donald Trump and his policies. I said his economic nationalism doesn't care about your race, your religion, your ethnicity, your gender, your sexual preference. Here's what it cares about, that you're citizens of the United States of America. We have all-time low unemployment among blacks in this country and 20-year low among Hispanics. The black working class and Hispanic working class are now getting the benefits, okay, of border security and economic.
So why do you get wrapped up in this stuff?
No, hang on. The lead into that was saying when they can't fight you on the facts, they're going to call you racist. When I first
saying where does a badge of honor?
No. When I first took over the campaign. They said, oh, Trump's going to lose by 20 points. He brought this mad bomber in. He's just going to destroy his enemies on the way down. Hillary Clinton comes off the beach, off the Hamptons, and she gives her identity politics. White nationalism, white racism. And I said at the time, sitting in the war room with the guys, I said, hey, if she runs on that and we continue to press economic nationalism and jobs, okay, and bringing jobs back from China, we're going to run the tables on her, and we did. And that's, by the way, the lead up to that. That's, but by the way, the mainstream media, what BBC did and what you just did, you want to take the last 2 seconds. You don't take the lead up.
Well, it's more than 2 seconds, and it's what you said.
Martin Luther King, I want to realize, he would be proud of what Donald Trump has done for black and Hispanic working class, okay?
I think there are a lot of civil rights leaders that would adamantly disagree with you on that. But let me, we're almost out of time. I want to ask you.
Yes, sir.
The president, of course, you alluded to it, called you sloppy Steve. He said that when you got fired, you not only lost your job, you lost your mind.
Right.
Have you patched things up with the president? When was the last time you spoke to him?
By the way, before I stepped in as CEO of the campaign, I probably talked to Donald Trump 10 times in my entire life. Yeah. Okay? I don't need to talk to Donald Trump. Donald Trump. But
have you patched things up?
Donald Trump is accomplishing everything he committed to the American people on the campaign that I stepped in as CEO. I couldn't be prouder of the guy. All he's got to do is continue to hit those marks on that whiteboard, and he's going to run the tables. You're not going to do an immigration bill from weakness.
Are you talking to him, though, or are you?
No. By the way, I talk to him every day through the press and through the media. By the way, he's got too many guys he talks to right now. All he's got to do is listen to his own inner voice. And that's going to lead, write this down, that's going to lead to a astounding victory in November. He is going to run the tables in the House. He's going to pick up a couple seats in the Senate.
All right, Steve Bannon, thank you for joining us here on This Week. Up next, the Powerhouse Roundtable debates, President Trump's historic summit with Kim Jong-un, the escalating battle over immigration, and what it all means for 2018. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
With only a kite.
Bringing the roundtable, Democratic strategist and former Clinton campaign spokesperson Karen Finney, chair of the American Conservative Union Matt Schlapp, Congressman Ben Ray Lujan of New Mexico, the chair of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, Greta Van Susteren, anchor of Voice of America's Plugged In, and ABC News' own political director Rick Klein. So Karen, let me start with you. The president says Donald Trump's on the ballot. This is the first re-election. I'm sorry.
No, he's not the president yet. Woo, that was a slip.
Because Steve Bannon says that Donald Trump is on the ballot. So what do you think?
He wants you to believe that, and that's what they're using.
Don't you want to believe that too?
No, because here's the thing. From the work that I've been doing, what people really care about is their own lives. They're not as concerned about Donald Trump right now. He is not as much of a motivating factor in the way that he is potentially for Republicans. And what Bannon is trying to do is keep their base stoked and fired up.
But the whole
we got to pretend
and all. Isn't this all about like fighting, pushing back on?
But here's part of the problem that they have. At the same time, we were talking about immigration. We were just talking about those images of children. If you're a Republican House member in a moderate district, you are on your own, because this president is not going to do anything to help you show your constituents that you actually care about those kids. And the other problem that these guys now have is that those images are heartbreaking. And they got, as much as Donald Trump wants to tell us he had the biggest crowd on his inaugural day that we've ever seen in the history of the world, we now can see with our own eyes that he's basically making the United States do something completely immoral.
And Matt, the president has said that he doesn't want those kids to be separated.
October 7th, he sent a letter to Congress to change this policy.
So, but Bannon fully embraced it.
Yeah, but this is Obama's.
Zero tolerance.
But Jonathan, this is also Obama's policy.
It's absolutely
no,
that's not true.
It absolutely is true. It absolutely is true. This is Jonathan. Let's get the facts.
The Attorney General said that this was zero tolerance.
Let's get the facts on the table. George Bush signed a law in 2008 on unaccompanied minors. It's a Flores decision from the 1990s that says the kids can't go with the adults through the adjudication process. I hate the policy. I want them to change the policy. But this is the rule of law. The president doesn't decide what laws he follows and what laws he doesn't follow.
Is it the parents were freed to come back for their hearing?
It takes 5 to 10 days to adjudicate whether or not somebody is here to be in a political asylee. If they're not a political asylee, they can go back with their children to their home. Otherwise, we have to go through this process. And if you want to change the law, that's fine. But you don't get to decide which laws. And Obama followed this law. All those photos you're seeing, it is true.
It can be done differently. And you're trying to tell me, though, that Donald Trump, the all-powerful Donald Trump, couldn't stop this from happening if he really wanted to?
When you're the president,
Lindsey Graham says all it would take is a phone call.
That's exactly right.
The Congress changes the law. The president executes the law. I get it that Obama did whatever he wanted, but that's the way separation of powers works. When you criticize Trump on this, you're also criticizing Obama.
So Congressman Lujan, you're actually going to the border after the show to take a look at all of this. What was your reaction to what you heard from Steve Bannon?
Well, once we finish up today, we'll be headed down to visit with our colleagues. Phil Bella put together a trip in South Texas. Michelle Lujan Grisham is leading an effort down in Southern California as well. I think this policy is disgusting, and there's no reason that children should be treated this way. Tearing apart children from their mothers and from their families, where you're hearing them cry and scream, this is just not American. And one of the concerns that we also have is how House Republicans have seemed to walk away from a piece of legislation that would allow us to address this and to fix it. And the very member, Carlos Curbelo, who helped lead the effort on the discharge petition, is the gentleman that went to go visit with Speaker Ryan, turned his back on all the vulnerable Republicans that were coming forward. This is horrific, this is ugly, but I think this is going to be devastating for House Republicans that made promises to their constituents.
Okay, it's terrible to take the children from the kids, from their parents. It's just absolutely horrendous. But let's not, I think Republicans and Democrats both have a lot of gall blaming each other. I mean, it's really disgusting. I mean, look, they all want to be voted to come to Washington and solve this problem. And they all say they're going to solve the problem, but they come here and fight. And let's look, President Trump, he has the House, he has the Senate, but not a filibuster-proof Senate. But President Obama, he had the House and the Senate, not a filibuster-proof Senate. And back in July 2010, I went to American University when he gave his grave immigration speech. So look, let's not have all the tears from the two parties about how horrible the other party is. They all say they can fix it. Well, they ought to fix it, and they ought to do it. It's disgusting that all they do is point fingers at each other and blame each other.
And John, as for the circumstance now, there is no realistic chance of Congress passing a fix to this, a change to this. It's part of the immigration legislation that will be on the House floor next week, including the Paul Ryan plan. But, the president on Friday initially said he was against that plan. Later in the day, tried to clean it up. I've talked to some people around House leadership. They think that the damage was already done, that this was already tenuous. And
so the so-called moderate bill,
the moderate bill that he said,
pretty hard line.
That's right. Even though the president says that now, it's because of people like Steve Bannon on TV. A lot of Republicans are afraid the president will change his mind again and say, wait a second, this is amnesty or this is not something I can support. And it strikes me that this is the fight that President Trump's been looking for a very long time, virtually since the moment he declared his candidacy 3 years ago, a fight over immigration, fight over the border. But these real-world circumstances make it so much more complicated.
But if they actually did work together and stop pointing the fingers at each other on the House and Senate and presented a bill, I mean, if they actually did sit down and do their jobs instead of coming to Washington just to fight, I mean, there would be a bill a president could sign.
But Greta, you can't possibly say that when right now part of the problem is there is no bill that this president will sign. That's part of the problem.
I don't buy that. I don't buy that. If you present,
first of all, he can't decide what his opinion is or what he's for and what he's against.
If the House Democrats and Republicans, Senate Republicans, Senate Democrats did their jobs, what they all claimed that they would do if they came to Washington, if we put them in office, and actually did fix these problems and put a bill together, a strong bill, a president would sign it, whether it's a President Trump or a President Obama.
We got the president that we have.
I think that the president has taken some tremendous steps which would upset a lot of people I work with on the conservative side. They're worried about this concept of citizenship for people who came here illegally. I understand, but I'm saying the president took some steps to say, look, I will go towards you if you go towards me. The problem with immigration, it always becomes this huge, comprehensive bill. I would advocate more for fixing things that we know are problems. We know this idea of separating kids from their parents is a problem. Nobody likes it. It doesn't make anybody comfortable. I hate the policy. The president said on October 7th he wanted to change it. Why don't we change it? Why don't we do things that make sense to both sides? Why don't we get, as Greta's saying, why don't we get moving and get these things done?
Matt, the president could pick up the phone and stop it today, number one. Yes, he could.
No, he can't, because you're the legislative chamber.
Well, the one piece of legislation that could move through the floor is the one that Speaker Wright just abandoned. Democrats and Republicans did get together with the USA Act to begin to address these issues. And again, it's those vulnerable Republicans that are turning their back on this process, and it is politics that are breaking this apart.
Look, I hate I hate hearing. I've been in Washington too long. I hear all the Democrats say how awful the Republicans are. It's the Republicans that do it. All the Republicans say how awful the Democrats are. The Democrats do. But the American people, I think, are probably pretty sick of this.
They want us to fix things, and we should allow bills to be voted on the floor.
They want you to do your job. They want you to.
I want to turn to North Korea, and first by playing this amazing video that was played at the president's press conference that he played himself for Kim Jong-un. Here's a little excerpt of it.
Two men, two leaders, one destiny. A story about a special moment in time when a man is presented with one chance that may never be repeated. What will he choose? To show vision and leadership? Or not?
All right, first of all, when that started playing at the press conference, I was there. It was first played in Korean. I thought that maybe somebody had hacked into the system here. It was pretty amazing. But,
I like the basketball.
But yeah, the basketball is a nice touch. But shouldn't the president get some credit for trying this? I mean, we are a step further away. We may not have solved the nuclear issue. We're far from that. But we were on the brink of what seemed like possible war just a few months ago.
Well, we were on the brink of what possibly seemed like war because we had a president who was going around actually saber rattling, so that didn't help. So it's one thing to sort of
President Obama did tell him this was the biggest challenge that he was going to face on the national security front.
I give this president credit for at least taking this step. The problem is we don't know yet how significant this step will be, because as we know, a lot of it will depend on everything we now need to find out in terms of what are going to be the ways that we can verify how much
huge unanswered.
But in all seriousness, it may be an important step. We just don't know, because then there's now the 20 other things that have to happen.
That's life.
And we'll know what.
That's life. You have to take a step, and you have to determine that the policy we were on was going to result in a destabilized globe, because they are a nuclear power. We were going to do the same thing on Iran.
There's still a nuclear power today, by the way.
Let me finish. That's right. And so the policy resulted in a very bad outcome, and the president came in and said, we got to try something different. If you have to make some kind of promo video, if you have to put the American flag out there, it's very distasteful for all of us. These are steps to try to undo a stupid policy that presidents we all served were a part of, and to try to get us on a better path to denuclearize the Korean Peninsula. It's clearly the right thing. Yeah, we're worried about the next step. You have to take the first step to determine the second step.
This is interesting, though, Rick, because Republicans would have eviscerated Barack Obama if he had gone and met with Kim Jong-un, wouldn't they have?
No question. And to me, it's another statement about how Trumpism is Republicanism, Republicanism is Donald Trump right now, because he has remade what it means to be a Republican. And I agree with you. I think this is the kind of step that if the Democrat had done, the Republicans would have gone nuts on. The fact that they have rallied behind him on this, I think, look, a lot of folks look at this and say it's better than the alternative. I think we see that in our poll out this morning. At least it's a possibility of a better outcome. And I think you see his
popular,
right, relatively.
Greta, you interviewed the president right after the meeting.
And I've been to North Korea 3 times. And look, there's so many times when we deal with people we don't want to deal with. We had Nixon in 1972 with Chu En-lai, and he met Mao Zedong. We had President Obama shaking hands with an American flag and a Cuban flag in Cuba with Raul Castro. And now we've got our president with Kim Jong-un in Singapore with both the flags next to. Look, we deal with these horrible people because we're hoping that we can get solutions. We even had a situation where we lifted sanctions in Myanmar, hoping that they would improve with the democracy. Instead, they do ethnic cleansing with the Rohingya. So we deal with awful people because Mother Teresa and the Pope don't have nuclear weapons. It's these awful people who have these things. So we deal with it, and it's a terrible situation that we have to, and they're horrible human rights. But I agree with Matt, and I agree with Karen. It was a start. We don't know where this is going to lead, and North Korea has been deceitful before and probably deceitful this time. But this is an important start.
All right, unfortunately, we are out of time. Thank you very much for being here. Thanks to the roundtable. We will be back in just 60 seconds with the moment of hope and goodwill on the baseball field this week in Washington.
Darlie Routier and no other person murdered her own children.
It's the must-see docuseries you shouldn't miss.
I never thought she was guilty, and don't to this day.
1 month before these killings, there's this entry into her diary where she said, "Forgive me for what I'm about to do."
The idea that I would murder my children is just ridiculous.
The Last Defense, new Tuesday on ABC. And watch the riveting premiere streaming now and on demand.
Spring is one of my favorite seasons.
We can get outside and enjoy the beauty of nature with the warmer temperatures. We know here in NEPA, the weather can change our plans quickly.
Cold air from the north can undercut warm, moist air from the south, providing uplift, and then boom. A severe weather event can develop in minutes. We have to be on the lookout for thunderstorms, tornadoes, and more.
Spring is a great time for outdoor activities like graduations and weddings.
Oh yeah, spring. You gotta love it. We're here to help you make the most of your springtime.
Your mom said, comb your hair. Your dad told you, smarten up. Your dog is judging you right now. And your best friend just called.